in. Got it. Back at the wall. Target. Clock, step back, three for the
This is Chris Canary of the Indiana Pacers on Fox Sports Indiana, and you're listening to Smalltown Sportstalk.
Hello and welcome to Smalltown Sportstalk, brought to you by Endeavor Communications. I'm Jonah Freeman with co-host Andrew Willett. Andrew, how are you today, man?
Jonah, never been better, and again, really excited for this guest. He was an ABA, NBA legend, Indiana legend, by the way, for our hometown here. Indiana Hoosier, Indiana Pacer, one of 4 Pacers to have their jerseys in the rafters, and we're just really excited to welcome a Naismith Hall of Famer, Mr. George McGinnis. George, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight.
So I just want to start off. Andrew mentioned that you've done a lot in the hoops for Indiana. What's it like growing up in a place where basketball is such a big deal, and how did that impact you growing up as a basketball player?
Well, you know, one of the things about Indiana, you kind of drive around the areas of where you guys live, or sometimes in the city, and you see nothing but basketball hoops in the driveway. This was in the 50s and 60s when I grew up. So, you know, it was just a way of life. All the kids in my neighborhood played basketball. And then I had a chance to watch some kids in my neighborhood play for a high school called Washington High School, where I eventually ended up going. And they won a state championship in 1965. So it was the first time I was around some guys that I knew, that I was able to watch on TV. And boy, it was inspiring. And, you know, our little group says, well, we're going to do that one day. And we just, we went out and played the next day after that state championship.
And hey, you went on to actually end up doing that when your team went undefeated 31-0, won a state championship in 1969. You played with Steve Downing.
Correct.
What was that team like?
Well, it was, we were awful big. Steve Downing, was an interesting story. As a freshman in high school, he was 5'10", and as a senior, he was 6'9". So he almost grew a whole foot in high school in 4 years. So it was pretty neat having we were called like the Twin Towers of our day. And then we had another gentleman by the name of Wayne Pack. So 3 guys on that team end up playing professional basketball. So it was an honor to play with all the guys, and you know, you leave a legacy. And I'll tell you what, of all the things that I've done, you know, winning ABA championships, being an all-star, playing in the NBA, being a Naismith Hall of Famer, there is nothing I have done that I got more pleasure than winning on that March night in Hinkle Fieldhouse, that high school state championship. It was a dream come true. I've never been able to duplicate that feeling.
What was it about that feeling that was so special? If you don't mind, just kind of talk us through that night.
Well, it was something I grew up with. You know, being an African-American kid, I watched Addicts in 1955, 56. I was 6 years old win that championship, and I saw the joy on their faces, and I just thought, man, this is something I'd really like to do. But I didn't know any of those guys. But when I was able to, you know, grow up with some guys who went on to, you know, create their own legacy at Washington High School, it was impacted in me. I thought about it every day. I mean, playing for a state championship, who would want to do that? And it was kind of like a way of life for us. We talked about it all the time growing up. We did some unbelievable things when I was a freshman. We had a couple of sophomores on our team that were driving their own car. So Rick Mount in 1966 was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, which was incredible. You know, I mean, a high school kid from Indiana. And we got in our car and drove up 65 north to Lebanon just to see a sign outside of his hometown that said Lebanon, Indiana, home of Rick Mount. And then, that same year in '66, we sit in the parking lot of Hinkle Fieldhouse and listen to the state championship game. We couldn't get in, so we just sit in the car and just, heard the roar of the crowd. So it was instilled in us.
Yeah, you had that unbelievable senior season, 31-0, state championship, and then to be named Mr. Basketball for the state of Indiana.
Yeah.
Your decision to go play for the Hoosiers.
Yeah. I went to IU and we really wanted to stay close to home. Unfortunately, I lost my dad during my senior year, right after my Indiana-Kentucky All-Star game. My dad, who was a construction worker, fell from a building over at Eli Lilly and was killed, unfortunately. So it put a lot of pressure on our family, who we didn't have very much. So I wanted to stay close to home, and that sealed my decision to go to Indiana, although I was really leaning that way before this happened.
As a Purdue fan, obviously the Indiana-Purdue rivalry is a big deal. And although you only got to actually participate once, what was it like playing against the Boilermakers in a state rivalry game like that?
I'm telling you, no matter what the record of the other team is, it's a war. And they had a guy by the name of George Faber, who now is a big window manufacturer and sells a lot of windows here in Indianapolis metropolitan area. Really nice guy, but he was a big, rugged guy. And, he gave me all I wanted in that game. And that's kind of been the history of the IU Purdue series. And as a matter of fact, they ended up beating us. The only time I played against Purdue, we lost, and it was at Bloomington. So, and it's still happening to this day. Purdue IU, it doesn't get any better than that in our state.
Obviously, some great memories. Purdue IU. Being an IU fan, what was just your best memory as a Hoosier?
I think signing, the excitement. When I went there, they were playing in the old arena, which was an old structure and floor with sawdust floors around and bleachers. And they did say that we're gonna build a new arena here and try and move our program forward. And that was Assembly Hall. So that was probably really an exciting time to see that all go up during my freshman year, and we were able to play there my sophomore year. So it was a pretty neat thing seeing the old arena be demolished and this new one being built. Although after you got in there, the seating wasn't the greatest in the world.
What was it like as an Indiana Hoosier? You had a big name at the time, knowing you were going to take that next step and make it to the ABA after your career at Indiana. What was that like for you?
It was exciting to know that, I put in all this work as a kid. I was able to play in a great situation in high school, a really good situation in college, and establish myself as one of the top players in the country. And again, it was an opportunity to stay close to home. I was always a hometown boy, and I really loved living here in Indiana. So it matched well with kind of all my wishes, and it was special to be able to play at every level, high school, college, and pro in one town. It doesn't happen too often to athletes.
And not only playing at the pro level, but playing for the Pacers, both in the ABA and later in the NBA.
Correct.
What was that first stint with the Pacers like? Obviously, you were a two-time champion. How was that transition from college to the pro level for you?
Well, I was used to being on winning teams, and actually, the Pacers had won a championship the year before I got there, and and they really had a good seasoned team. Mel Daniels, Roger Brown, who were both in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, were the two cornerstones of that team, along with Bobby Slick Leonard, our coach. So I was just trying to fit in and not be a nuisance or cause trouble, and it worked out so well because the guys were so great to me, and we had just a good group of guys. We rode horses together. We did everything together. We all rode motorcycles together. We really embodied the word team. We did more stuff off the court than we ever did on the court. So it was an honor to be able to play with those guys and then be coached by slick Bobby Leonard.
Well, George, I would say you did more than fit in, averaging nearly 17, and then I think 27 points a game in your second year.
Yeah. Well, most of the older guys, like Roger and Mel, and those guys had retired or moved on. They, played for other team in Memphis, but they only played a couple of months, and they end up retiring. But yeah, my second year I really came of age, but all the veterans were gone, and we kind of re-upped our team with young guys, and wasn't expected to go very far, but we had a really good year.
What is the biggest difference between the transition to the ABA and the NBA? What was it like going from one league to the other?
Well, you know what? It's like we were playing like the NBA plays today, up and down, shooting threes, spreading out the floor. And the NBA was just a big old strong guys league where you threw it down in the post and you just physically beat up your opponent and overpowered him. So it was like night and day compared to the ABA where I started my career at. But it was not easy. It was easy for me to play in that league because I was very confident, and it was a different kind of game that they played over there. Our game was much more exciting, like the NBA game is today. So gradually they start leaning toward a more open style game with a little bit more scoring. It just gives the fans, I think, a little bit more bang for their buck.
Yeah, George, I was looking at some of the stats. You averaged nearly 35, actually, I think a little bit over 35% from three-point range in your last year in the ABA. So I want to ask you, how do you think your game would transfer to today's NBA?
I think so. Yeah, these guys are so much more well conditioned. When we played basketball, you got in basketball shape during basketball season, meaning that you went to training camp and things like that. There was 5 or 6 guys on our team when I was a rookie that had summer jobs. I only made $32,000 my first year or so with the Pacers. So, but now, a guy like LeBron, he said he spends $1 million a year on his body. But that wasn't heard of when we were coming up. It was a whole different attitude. Although that $30,000 a year in 1971-72 was really good money, it just, when you got done with the season, you took off, you went on vacation, you took your wife and your kids somewhere, you did things. Where now it seems to be a 24-hour, 12-month-a-year process that these guys go through, and they're much better conditioned, they're much better athletes. I could fit in. I don't know how well I would do, but I could definitely fit in, yeah.
So you're not saying like maybe Michael Jordan's former agent, David Falk, said that he would average 60 points a game on 75% shooting in today's league. You're saying maybe not that for you?
Well, no. Because Michael Jordan's a whole different species that we're talking about. But yeah, I think I do okay. In my prime, I would probably do as well as I did. When I was playing, I could average over 20 a game, over 10 rebounds. That wasn't very hard in those days. Um, Sometimes, it baffles me with big guys. You can almost get 2 or 3 rebounds a game just by accident, just by being tall. So when I see someone who's 7 foot tall who doesn't average but 5 or 6 rebounds, it makes me wonder. I said, what's going on? I mean, it's just rebounding is hard work, and Dennis Rodman's a perfect example. Man, that guy was incredible. But it's just about positioning and working hard and getting in the right position, knowing the angles where the ball's going to bounce. I could, in today's game, I know I could average double figures in the rebound and probably in points as well. So,
Well, and hey, you mentioned LeBron James. You had a LeBron James season yourself. That last year you were in the ABA, nearly averaged triple double in the playoffs, and
yeah.
like LeBron, your team lost in the finals that year, unfortunately.
Yeah, we lost to the Kentucky Terminals. Like I said, we were a very young team. We had several rookies, Don Boozy, Billy Knight, several Kevin Joyce. We had some people we had just drafted, and we fit in well. We took the same approach. I took the same approach with those guys, that those veterans who unfortunately had gone on and were getting ready to retire. I took the same approach with the new guys that the old guys took with me. It would, open them with welcome arms. This was kind of like a big family. We did everything together. We had, parties and stuff on the road. If there was a birthday or if there was a special occasion, we all got together. So we meshed immediately. And we were a really good team. We were picked just to barely make the playoffs that year, if we made it. We were not picked to get past the first round, and we upset 2 or 3 teams. I think Denver and Utah and someone else to get to the finals of that game, of that year.
Who were some of the guys in your time that you battled with a lot and that you just enjoyed playing against?
Well, Julius Erving, Dr. J, George Iceman Gervin, Artis Gilmore, Dan Issel. These are legendary guys who could really, really play. Rick Barry. So we had some outstanding talent over in the ABA. We had the better players, in my opinion, because when the leagues first merged, the first All-Star game had half the All-Star team was from the ABA. And the 2 coaches who coached the All-Star was from the ABA. So it was really incredible. So when the ABA did merge, it made a big impact on the NBA.
You just mentioned so many greats, and we've talked a little about LeBron and talked about MJ even.
Right.
In your mind, who is the greatest basketball player of all time?
Well, I think MJ, he will always be the GOAT to me. Although I think LeBron is a close second. He is, he's been playing, I don't know, just 16 years, and he still gets up and down the floor like a young man. It's amazing. It's nobody's going to surpass Michael Jordan in my mind, but LeBron is certainly right up there, and he's an incredible athlete and a really good guy. He does a lot of good things in his community. He works with kids. He's very socially conscious, so I think he's got a really good heart, and that to me means as much as being just a good athlete.
Jonah, do you know what is ridiculously fast?
What's that, Andrew?
Endeavor Communications internet speeds.
That's right. In Indiana, basketball is everything. And if you're anything like Andrew and I, you are always streaming basketball, your favorite sports, or just your favorite shows. And hey, you're always going to need Wi-Fi.
Ridiculously fast.
Endeavor Communications provides Wi-Fi perfect for watching the big game, streaming your favorite shows, working, studying, and gaming all at the same time.
Not only is Endeavor fast, but when you go with Endeavor, you support the whole community.
Endeavor Communications is proud to serve and support our local community. From homes, education, businesses, Endeavor will keep you ahead of the game.
You can find out more and see for yourself at weendeavor.com. That's weendeavor.com. And tell them Smalltown Sportstalk sent you. Happy to get your take on that, and did some kind words from LeBron there, George. You mentioned some of the best players that you played against, and you also talked about how close you were with that Pacers team in the ABA.
Yeah.
Who
Right.
were some of your favorite teammates to play with?
Well, when I first got there, of course, Mel Daniels, Roger, and Bob Nedelicki, myself, Billy Keller. Billy Keller went to my high school, and he ended up going to Purdue. He was a legend there with Rick Mount, and they, of course, went to the finals of the NCAA, and I think it was 67 or so, and where they got beat by Lou Alcindor, who's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in that finals. So then, of course, I came, a guy named Don Boozy, Darnell Hillman, who was a legendary guy, a lot of other young guys. I mean, we just got along perfect. And I think it was all because of the coaching. That was Slick. Slick was responsible for that. He would, the first thing, he would have a meeting before the season started. He goes, look, guys, you got to care about each other. You got to love each other. And just remember, you're nobody until you do something for somebody else. So it kind of put a icing on the cake for us about really caring about each other. Even when we had tough times, when we lose 3-4 games in a row, we never got down on each other. We were mad because we lost, but we never got down on each other. And that was a real key to our team, I think.
Now, George, I did want to ask you about your former coach, Slick Leonard. What's it like seeing him still announcing games?
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. I told him, I said, they're going to, when you die, they're going to, the Smithsonian's going to take his body and examine it because it's unbelievable. He just continues to go. I think he loves the game so much, and people love him so much that, I think a lot of people would be disappointed if he stopped doing the games. But it keeps him going. He absolutely loves it, and I'm so happy for him. I talk to him at least every week.
That's pretty cool that you still have that relationship with him.
Yeah.
But then, George, obviously you had to switch over, or you switched over from the ABA to the NBA. What was it like, Billy? And I actually heard a little bit that you wanted to end up with the New York Knicks. What was that about?
Well, when I, when back in those days, the ABA would draft you, and someone in the NBA would draft you. Now, depending on what league you went to, the other team held your draft rights for life. So when I signed with the Pacers, they drafted me number 1. And but over in the NBA, I was drafted by Philadelphia, number 1. So when I played out my last year's contract, that 1 year we had the really great year with the young players, I was offered money that I just could only dream about, $500,000 a year, a $500,000 signing bonus. But the Knicks were the ones who were doing it. They called me, and I met with them, and they said, I know that we don't hold your draft rights, but we're going to take this to court. We'll indemnify you. You won't be responsible for any financial issue in this thing. And I think what had happened, we had played the Knicks in an exhibition game the year before. And I think their coach loved the way I played. So I think he enticed the general manager to take a chance in that arena. And so I flew up to New York, met with him. they had a really good team at the time. They had won 2 championships as well, just like we did. So their guys were getting older, and they were trying to reset their team, and they were going to use me as one of the cornerstones. Well, I said, okay, I'll try this. So we signed. Of course, the NBA got involved, and there was a big lawsuit. And at the end of the day, to make a long story short, the Knicks lost and Philadelphia won, and they matched everything the Knicks offered me. So I'll end up in Philly.
It's just crazy to me how much the game has changed in every way, including the money standpoint. Looking at today's game, how involved are you with today's game, and how often do you find yourself sitting in Bankers Life Fieldhouse to watch the Pacers?
Oh, I do. I see a few games a year, but I do quite a few appearances for the Pacers. I'm still engaged. I enjoy watching. So yeah, it just amazes me. Sometimes I see a guy says he probably couldn't even play on our team. And says, oh yeah, but he's making $17 million a year. I'm thinking, wow, it's unbelievable.
And then what's it like when you're at these games and you look up and you see your name and number in the rafters?
Well, it's quite an honor. It's there's not a whole lot of guys who get to be honored in that way, and everybody's up in those rafters. Myself, Slick, Roger, Mel, and Reggie. We're all in the Hall of Fame, so that means that you left a legacy. You did something that was good enough to warrant them saying, hey, we want to honor you in this way. So it was wonderful. It's a wonderful thing to walk in there and see your jersey hanging up there. So
Jonah is talking about how some of the things in the NBA change from when you played to now. But one of those things being players no longer want to go play for the New York Knicks. Why do you think that is?
Yeah. Oh, I think it's ownership, no question. The ownership has not shown that he's willing to, do all the right things to win a championship. Sometimes these owners like New York and Golden State and Los Angeles Lakers and the Boston Celtics, those are the cash cows of the NBA. They make money whether they win or lose. Now all the owners in the NBA make money whether the team wins or loses. So for years the Clippers never wanted to win. They just wanted to stay under the cap, and the owner made a nice piece of change. But it takes a commitment. I think now with some of the things that's happened over the years with the Knicks organization, a lot of the present day players are turned off about going there, and they don't even want to entertain talking about going there. This is the way things have evolved in the last 5 to 10 years. That's my take.
That's what I like to hear, George. I'm a huge Celtics fan, so anything that take down the Knicks, I'm all for it. I also
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I was just going to say there's nothing. One of the greatest honors playing in Madison Square Garden and the Boston Gardens. It was a real honor to see all those flags, and they emphasize. It just emphasized what team basketball is all about. And they still do it to this day. They're quite an extraordinary organization, committed to winning, that's for sure.
Even more of what I like to hear. Jonah knows I'm all about the Celtics. I also want to ask you. You say you're still watching games. Do you ever talk to any NBA players that are currently playing, give advice or anything like that?
Well, no, not so much advice, but, they'll come over. LeBron is a guy who is really involved in the history of the game. He can tell you players from each era all the way back to the 50s and 60s. So, I have talked to him a couple of times. He says, yeah, you're supposed to be the LeBron of your day. And I says, well, I don't know about that. But he was nice and very gracious and was happy to meet me. And he told me, I appreciate what you left. And it's because of you guys that we're, what we're doing today. So he was very, very nice. But I met a lot of players. Reggie was a great guy. When I go to games, sometimes I'll be down in the parking garage where the opposing team comes in, and I'll meet a lot of those guys just that way. I met Michael through there, Jordan and Scotty, a lot of players over the league over the years. So, yeah, and most of them have been pretty nice. They're pretty nice to older guys. They pay their respects, which is kind of cool.
I have one last question for you. Overall, what are your thoughts on this year's Indiana Pacers team?
Well, I think the verdict is still out. We got a new coach. We don't know what's going to happen with Oladipo. Then there's a few questions on how we're going to move forward with this team and and obviously there's going to be some trading and who's going to be the person who gets traded, and then what you're going to get for him for that trade. So that's going to be the big key questions for the Pacers. They had a pretty good year last year, but they end up getting some injuries. Oladipo and what's his name, the big Russian center. He's a terrific player.
Sabonis,
for the Pacers. Sabonis, he is just incredible. He's wonderful. I would think that I heard talk about his name being mentioned in trade talk, but there's a guy I would not trade. I think he might be the most valuable player there on the Pacers team. So it just depends. They got a new coach. Maybe I don't know if they're looking for a new direction, but time will tell. I think the jury's still out. But no matter what they do, I'll always support them. They're my team, and we started with that team, and whatever happens, we're going to live and die with them.
Homegrown Indiana prospect George McGinnis, living and dying with the Pacers. I like to hear that.
Yep.
George, before we get to the 60-second speed round, I have one more question for you. I gotta
Okay.
ask, what do you think about today's game?
Oh, I love it. I think it's exciting. I think I love Curry with the Golden State Warriors. He's so exciting. He's kind of a unique guy, being he's about 6'3", but he's kind of slight. But he is absolutely probably the best shooter that's ever played the game. And I love watching the way they played. They played so hard and played together. I think that there's so much talent in the league. It's crazy. Every year it seems as though you get these kids who do freakish things, and it's just been fun to watch how it all evolved over the years.
George, that's awesome. Hey, it has been incredible talking to you. Now it
Yep.
is time for our 60-second speed round, where it's about 10 or so fun questions for you, just easy answers. But I'll start the timer, and Jonah's got the questions for you. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes.
It is our 60-second speed round, brought to you by Endeavor Communications. Jonah, you got it.
What is your favorite hobby right now?
My favorite hobby used to be golf. I got a bad back. I had a couple operations, but I don't play so much anymore, but golf. And fishing.
What was your first big purchase in the league?
I bought my mom a house.
40 seconds.
What is your favorite place to eat in downtown Indianapolis?
St. Elmo's.
Who is your favorite current NBA player?
LeBron James.
If you had to pick a sport outside of basketball to be a professional athlete in, what would it be?
20 seconds.
Baseball.
Do you have a favorite book?
Yes, The Art of War.
Okay, and then what is your favorite music artist?
Motown. Anything Motown.
All right, that's all I got.
And that'll do it.
Okay.
50-second speed round brought to you by Endeavor Communications. George, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. It's been a real pleasure. I wish you nothing but success in the future, and I really had a good time being with you tonight.
It was a pleasure to get to talk to you. I know for me, for Jonah, thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you so much for listening. You can find our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Please go out and listen to more of our podcasts. I'm Andrew Willett with Jonah Freeman, and today, George McGinnis. That's ST squared.